In Renaissance Florence, a diplomatic advisor named Niccolo Machiavelli watched the wealthiest families, the Medicis, control not just commerce, but kings, popes, and entire nations. Meanwhile, the most virtuous philosophers died in poverty, their brilliant ideas buried with their penniless corpses. When asked why virtue didn't protect the good from suffering, Machiavelli gave an answer that got him exiled. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But both require one thing above all else: resources. But here's what they've hidden from you about this truth. The Medicis didn't just have money, they had freedom. While peasants starved based on a lord's whim, the Medicis decided who would be pope. While artists begged for scraps, the Medicis commissioned Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. While philosophers theorized about justice, the Medicis created it, or destroyed it, with a signature. And there's a reason this pattern has been buried under centuries of money can't buy happiness propaganda. You see, there's a game being played at the highest levels of power, and those already winning don't want you to understand the rules. They need you to believe that chasing money is shallow, that wealth is corrupting, that true fulfillment comes from passion and purpose. But what if this entire narrative is designed to keep you powerless? What if the very thing they've taught you to be ashamed of wanting is actually the foundation of every other form of freedom? Here's the question that will haunt you. What if I told you that every person telling you money isn't important is either lying or already has enough of it? Machiavelli understood this. He watched princes lose kingdoms not because they lacked virtue, but because they lacked gold to pay armies. He saw republics fall not because citizens lacked passion, but because treasuries ran empty. He witnessed brilliant minds die frustrated because poverty prevented them from executing their vision. But there's another kind of man, the kind who understands that money isn't the root of evil, it's the root of options. The kind who recognizes that every sermon about money's unimportance comes from someone whose bills are already paid. What separates these men from the masses? What did Machiavelli know that modern follow-your-passion influencers don't want you to discover? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every comfortable lie you've been told about wealth, virtue, and what it actually takes to live life on your own terms. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Machiavelli, most people are economic slaves pretending to be free. They call it a career. They call it responsibility. They call it being realistic. But strip away the language, and you'll see what it really is. Trading the majority of your waking life for just enough money to survive until you do it again tomorrow. But here's where it gets brutal. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to make friends. He wrote it because he understood something that polite society refuses to acknowledge. Power is the only protection against chaos, and money is the most reliable form of power in human civilization. Not just money, strategic wealth. There's a universe of difference. Salary is the drug they give you to forget you're enslaved. Wealth is the key that unlocks every cage they've built around your potential. Consider the Renaissance merchants who funded the Enlightenment. The Medicis didn't just collect art, they created the conditions for genius to flourish. Would Michelangelo have painted the Sistine Chapel without Medici gold? Would Galileo have revolutionized science without wealthy patrons protecting him from the church? The artists got the glory, the philosophers got the fame, but the money holders controlled reality itself. Think about this. Would Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation have succeeded without wealthy German princes protecting him? Would the American Revolution have won without French gold financing the Continental Army? Would Silicon Valley exist without venture capital? The history books celebrate ideas, but ideas without resources are just noise. Resources without ideas are just potential. The combination, that's how you reshape civilization. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The fool chases passion and scrambles for money later. The wise man secures resources first, then pursues passion from a position of strength. Here's the difference. The passionate but poor man is controlled by whoever signs his paycheck. His boss dictates his schedule. His landlord dictates where he lives. His creditors dictate his choices. He's a puppet performing passion on someone else's stage. But the man with resources, he writes his own script. He chooses his projects. He decides his schedule. He selects his associates. His passion serves his vision, not someone else's quarterly earnings report. This path offers no moral superiority. Society doesn't reward wealth seekers with righteousness points. The man chasing money is called greedy, shallow, materialistic. The man chasing purpose is called noble, even as he remains powerless to implement that purpose. And here's the paradox that will break your conditioning. This judgment is the point. Keep you focused on moral superiority while others focus on material reality. Keep you arguing about what's right while they are acquiring what's effective. Keep you proud of your noble poverty while they are building empires. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors the bold, but boldness without resources is just recklessness. The bold man with money can survive his mistakes and try again. The bold man without money? One failure destroys him. But here's what happens when you stop apologizing for wanting wealth. There's a mathematical relationship that determines your entire life trajectory, yet nobody teaches it in school. Your freedom is directly proportional to your financial independence, not your virtue, not your passion, not your credentials, your liquid, accessible, resource-based power. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. But willingness means nothing without resources to execute. Willingness without capital is just wishful thinking." Here's what the financially ignorant never grasp. Money isn't just about buying things. It's about buying time, buying options, buying the right to say no to things that don't serve you. Every dollar you acquire is a small piece of sovereignty reclaimed from a system designed to keep you compliant. The man making $50,000 a year can't quit the job he hates, can't move to the city with better opportunities, can't invest 6 months building a business, can't take risks that might transform his life. He's trapped by the immediate need to survive. The man with $500,000 in assets, different reality entirely. He can walk away from toxic employment. He can relocate strategically. He can invest time in high-leverage activities. He can take calculated risks because failure won't destroy him. His money bought him something more valuable than comfort. It bought him time to think strategically instead of react desperately. Consider the Rothschild family, who understood this principle so thoroughly they became financial advisors to nations. Nathan Rothschild said, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." Crude? Absolutely. True? Undeniably. The politicians got the glory and the scrutiny. The Rothschilds got the power and the discretion. Which would you prefer? Here's what changes when you internalize this truth. Your relationship with money transforms from emotional to mechanical. The poor man sees money as a moral issue, good or evil, noble, or corrupt. The wealthy man sees money as a tool, effective or ineffective, leveraged or underutilized. You stop judging yourself for wanting wealth. Guilt is the tax the powerful levy on the powerless to keep them docile. Every moment you spend feeling bad about wanting money is a moment you're not spending acquiring it. You start calculating everything in terms of time and freedom. That $100,000 salary increase isn't just more money, it's accelerated timeline to financial independence. That side business isn't just extra income, it's asymmetric upside that salary can never provide. That investment isn't just portfolio diversification, it's money working while you sleep, multiplying your effective hours in each day. Machiavelli observed that princes who relied on others' armies always fell. The same applies economically. The man dependent on one income source is one decision away from catastrophe. The man with multiple income streams, investments generating passive returns, and liquid reserves, he's fortified against fortune's arrows. Here's the brutal economic reality. Your employer pays you the minimum necessary to keep you from quitting. Your landlord charges the maximum you can afford before you'd move. Your creditors structure debt to maximize their profit while minimizing your escape velocity. The entire system is optimized to keep you producing just enough to consume, but never enough to escape. The wealth chaser sees this machine clearly and refuses to be its fuel. He becomes the engineer instead of the cog. He builds systems that serve him instead of serving systems that consume him. Andrew Carnegie understood this when he said, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced, not because wealth is shameful, but because wealth not deployed to create more freedom, more opportunity, more capacity is wasted potential." Carnegie gave away $350 million because he'd already used wealth to buy complete sovereignty over his existence. Can you imagine that level of freedom? Not just, I can buy a nice car freedom, but I can reshape entire industries and educational systems. Freedom? That's not an accident. That's not luck. That's the systematic pursuit of financial power executed with Machiavellian precision. They've convinced you that wanting money makes you a bad person. This is the most successful propaganda campaign in human history, and here's why it exists. The people already holding wealth need you to believe that acquiring wealth is somehow wrong. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Translation: everyone can see you accumulating wealth, but few can feel the freedom it provides, so they judge what they see without understanding what you gain. Here's the trap they've set for you. Pursue money and you're greedy or materialistic. Pursue passion without money and you're noble but powerless. Either way, you stay in your lane while they consolidate power. It's a rigged game where both available options keep you contained. But there's a third option they don't advertise. Pursue money strategically, then use that financial power to pursue passion from a position of strength. Consider the greatest artists and thinkers of any era. Sure, some died in poverty, and we remember them despite their powerlessness, not because of it, but the ones who actually changed civilization, they either had money or had wealthy patrons. Shakespeare ran a profitable theater company. Bach worked for wealthy nobles. Mozart struggled until he secured aristocratic support. Michelangelo was bankrolled by the richest family in Europe. Even Jesus had wealthy supporters funding his ministry. The pattern is clear. Impact requires resources. The question is whether you'll acquire those resources yourself or depend on others to provide them. Here's what the morality trap actually is. It's a psychological prison that keeps you from accumulating the power to leave literal prisons of debt, of bad employment, of limited options, of geographical constraints, of creative suppression. The person telling you money can't buy happiness is trying to make themselves feel better about not having money, or they're trying to keep you from acquiring money that might threaten their relative position. Either way, it's manipulation disguised as wisdom. Machiavelli saw this clearly. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions. The immediate need is feeling okay about not having money. The deception is that not having money is somehow more virtuous than having it. Let me destroy this lie completely. Money doesn't make you greedy. Money reveals whether you were already greedy. The virtuous person with money can accomplish virtuous things at scale. The corrupt person with money just operates their corruption more efficiently. Money is an amplifier of character, not a corruption of it. Gandhi lived simply but required millions in donations to run his independence movement. Mother Teresa's humanitarian work required massive financial infrastructure. Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement needed funding for transportation, bail money, legal fees, and organization. These moral exemplars understood something crucial. You cannot divorce material reality from moral vision. Virtue without resources is just performance art. Virtue with resources is transformation. The guilt you feel about wanting money, that's not your conscience. That's your programming. Someone benefits from you staying poor, and it's not you. Here's what changes when you reject the morality trap. You stop seeking permission to want wealth. You stop apologizing for ambition. You stop pretending that noble poverty is somehow superior to resource capability. You recognize that every major positive change in history required funding, and someone had to pursue that funding without guilt. You realize that the most moral thing you can do is acquire enough resources to become immune to coercion. The employed man must stay silent about injustice. He has bills to pay. The financially independent man can speak truth because consequences don't threaten his survival. Financial independence isn't selfish. It's the prerequisite for authentic virtue. The dependent man must compromise. The sovereign man can choose integrity because choice is a luxury purchased with resources. Most people approach money like they approach dating. Desperately, emotionally, without strategy. They chase quick returns. They follow trends. They invest in hype. Then they wonder why they remain poor. Machiavelli would have recognized this immediately. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great, but willingness must be paired with method. Desire without strategy is just fantasy. Here's what separates wealth builders from wealth wishers. The wishers want money to appear magically. They buy lottery tickets. They follow get-rich-quick schemes. They believe in overnight success stories without seeing the decade of groundwork underneath. They want the outcome without the process. The builders understand something fundamental. Wealth is mathematics, not magic. It's the systematic application of principles that compound over time. It's boring, disciplined, and absolutely unstoppable when executed correctly. Consider John D. Rockefeller, who understood Machiavellian strategy better than almost anyone. He didn't just work hard in the oil business. He systematically consolidated every aspect of production, transportation, and distribution. He made competitors offers they couldn't refuse. Merge or be destroyed by predatory pricing. Ruthless? Absolutely. Effective? He became the wealthiest American in history, and his descendants still wield enormous power today. His strategy wasn't just making money, it was creating structural advantages that made competition nearly impossible. Here's the framework they don't teach you. First, acquire skills that generate high returns. Not passion, not following dreams. High leverage skills that markets actually pay for. The world doesn't care about your passion for underwater basket weaving. It cares about solving expensive problems. The passionate photographer struggles. The photographer who solves wealthy clients' need for status, displays through images. He charges $10,000 per session and books out months in advance. Same skill, different application, different outcome. Second, minimize consumption while maximizing income. The masses increase spending with every raise. They buy the car they can afford based on monthly payments. They rent the apartment that consumes 40% of income. They wonder why wealth never accumulates. The wealth builder lives below means on purpose. He drives a reliable used car while his income grows. He rents cheap while saving for assets. He sacrifices comfort now for sovereignty later. He understands that every dollar consumed is a dollar that can't compound. Third, deploy capital into asymmetric opportunities. The employed person trades time for money, linear relationship, capped upside. The investor deploys money into businesses, real estate, or assets where upside is multiples of downside risk. Machiavelli wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." Applied to wealth. Be fox clever in finding opportunities with asymmetric returns and lion bold in committing capital when you find them. Fourth, protect wealth once acquired. The masses think making money is hard. The wise know keeping money is harder. Lawsuits, bad partnerships, market crashes, lifestyle inflation, family drama. Wealth has 1,000 enemies. The strategic wealth builder creates legal structures that protect assets. He diversifies across uncorrelated investments. He lives privately so others don't know what he has. He understands that wealth preservation is its own skill set. Warren Buffett understood this principle. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Not because losses are immoral, but because the mathematics of recovery are brutal. Lose 50% and you must gain 100% just to break even. The compounding works both ways. Here's what happens when you implement strategic accumulation. Year 1 feels slow. You're earning more than spending, but the gap feels insignificant. $500 monthly savings seems meaningless when you need $500,000 for freedom. Year 3, things accelerate. That $18,000 saved is now earning returns. Your income increased through skill development. Your expenses stayed flat through discipline. The gap is now $1,500 monthly. Year 5, the machine is running. You have $75,000 working for you. Your income doubled through career moves and side projects. You're saving $3,000 monthly. The math starts feeling real. Year 10, you're approaching $300,000 in assets. Your investments are generating $15,000 annually in passive returns. You've built side income streams. Your savings rate is $5,000 monthly. You can see the exit. Year 15, financial independence. Your assets generate enough passive income to cover expenses. You're still working, but now by choice rather than necessity. You've purchased sovereignty. This isn't exceptional. This is mathematical. The only question is whether you'll execute the boring discipline required or whether you'll stay trapped in the comfortable cage of wage slavery. Money doesn't just buy things. It buys time, attention, expertise, access, and influence. It purchases your way out of systems designed to extract your compliance. It converts potential energy into kinetic reality. Machiavelli observed, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But here's what he didn't explicitly state. Both fear and love require the resources to project power. The penniless man inspires neither. He's invisible. Here's what resources actually purchase. Time. The employee trades 40+ hours weekly for survival money. The wealthy man buys back his time by paying others to handle low-value tasks. He's not working harder, he's buying his scarcest resource and deploying it toward high-leverage activities. Every hour you spend on tasks worth $20 per hour, when you could generate $200 per hour, is an hour of wealth destroyed. The rich understand this. The poor think doing everything themselves is saving money. It's actually compounding poverty. Optionality. The man with no savings must accept any job offered, any apartment available, any terms presented. He has no negotiating power because he has no alternatives. The man with reserves? He can wait for the right opportunity. He can negotiate from strength. He can walk away from bad deals. His resources purchase the most valuable thing in any negotiation, the power to say no. Expertise. Want to build a business but don't understand finance? The poor man stays stuck. The wealthy man hires a CFO. Need legal protection? The poor man uses LegalZoom and hopes. The wealthy man retains the best attorneys. Want to optimize health? The poor man Googles symptoms. The wealthy man has concierge physicians. Resources don't make you smarter. They give you immediate access to the smartest people in any domain. Your wealth purchases their expertise on demand. Influence. Like it or not, money grants access to power structures. The wealthy man's call gets returned. His email gets read. His meeting requests get accepted. Not because he's more deserving, but because resources signal that engaging with him might be valuable. Politicians meet with donors. Universities accept applicants with wealthy parents. Business opportunities flow toward those with capital. This isn't fair. This is reality, and reality doesn't care about your opinion of it. Safety. The wealthy man has medical insurance that actually covers treatments. He lives in neighborhoods with low crime. He has lawyers on retainer if accused. He has the resources to relocate if local conditions deteriorate. His money built a fortress around his family. The poor man hopes nothing bad happens. The wealthy man has systems ensuring bad situations are managed when they inevitably occur. Machiavelli knew the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Translation: you can only keep your word if you have resources to back it. Commitment without capability is just noise. Consider Elon Musk. Whatever your opinion of him, observe how he operates. When he wanted to revolutionize payments, he built PayPal. When he wanted to advance electric vehicles, he built Tesla. When he wanted to ensure humanity's spacefaring future, he built SpaceX. When he wanted to influence public discourse, he bought Twitter for $44 billion. Whether you agree with his goals is irrelevant. The point is, he has the resources to execute his vision at civilization scale. His wealth isn't just money, it's the power to bend reality toward his will. You don't need billions to apply this principle. At every level, resources expand your agency. $10,000 emergency fund means you can quit the toxic job. $100,000 in assets means you can relocate for opportunities. $500,000 means you can start the business without outside investors. $2 million means you never have to work for anyone again. Each threshold unlocks new categories of freedom. The question is which threshold you're targeting and how aggressively you're pursuing it. There's a moment in every wealth builder's journey that's simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. When you realize you have enough money that employment is optional, when you understand that you've escaped the cage, when you recognize that every day forward is truly your choice. This is the moment Machiavelli prepared you for. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But the financially independent man doesn't have a ruler. He is the ruler. He selects his associations. He chooses his battles. He determines his direction. And society absolutely does not want you to reach this moment. Here's why. The system requires your compliance. It needs you to show up, perform tasks, generate profits for others, consume products, stay distracted, repeat. The financially independent person breaks this cycle. They become ungovernable. The employed man must tolerate the incompetent boss. The financially independent man walks away. The employed man must accept corporate politics. The financially independent man ignores them completely. The employed man must feign enthusiasm for missions he doesn't believe in. The financially independent man pursues only missions that genuinely matter to him. This freedom is dangerous because it's contagious. When your coworkers see you leave to pursue your actual interests while they remain trapped, it raises questions they'd rather not face. Why am I still here? What am I actually doing with my limited time alive? The system protects itself through social pressure. They'll call you irresponsible for leaving stable employment. They'll say you're having a midlife crisis. They'll predict your failure to make themselves feel better about their choice to stay. Machiavelli warned, "The innovator has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions." Your financial independence is an innovation that threatens everyone still dependent on the old system. Here's what actually happens when you reach dangerous freedom. First, relief. The weight of financial pressure lifts. You breathe differently. Sleep improves. Stress decreases. Your body stops operating in constant survival mode because survival is no longer in question. Second, disorientation. You've spent years, maybe decades, with external structure, alarm clocks, managers, deadlines, meetings. Suddenly, structure is your responsibility. Many people reach financial freedom in panic because they don't know what to do with it. Third, clarification. Without survival pressure distorting your choices, you finally discover what you actually want. Not what your parents wanted, not what society expected, not what made financial sense. What you specifically, genuinely care about pursuing. This is where the real work begins. The poor man dreams of freedom without understanding that freedom is responsibility intensified, not reduced. Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody provides structure. Nobody validates your choices. You must become your own source of direction, discipline, and meaning. Many people reach financial independence and discover they have no idea who they are without the identity employment provided. They were the lawyer, the consultant, the engineer. Strip away the role, and they find emptiness. But the man who built wealth strategically has been preparing for this moment. He used the journey toward financial independence as training for the freedom waiting at the end. He developed interests, skills, and projects that genuinely engage him. He knows exactly what he'll do when money is no longer the constraint. Machiavelli's prince didn't just seize power, he knew what to do with it once acquired. The same applies to wealth. The strategic pursuer isn't just accumulating resources. He's simultaneously building the vision he'll implement once those resources are secured. Here's the question that separates wealth chasers from wealth builders. What will you do with dangerous freedom once you acquire it? Will you just consume more? Bigger house, nicer car, fancier vacations? That's just wage slavery with a higher ceiling. Or will you use sovereignty to build something meaningful? Create the art that matters to you. Start the business that solves real problems. Support causes that align with your values. Develop skills for their own sake rather than their market value. The masses chase money to buy things. The wise chase money to buy freedom. But the truly dangerous chase money to buy the power to reshape reality according to their vision. Which are you? Here's what nobody tells you about wealth. Making money is the easy part. Keeping it is harder. But knowing what it's actually for? That's the question most people never answer. Machiavelli wrote, "Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack, and then they attack others." Applied to wealth. First, you chase survival, then comfort, then luxury, then what? This is where most wealth chasers lose the plot. They hit their number, whatever amount they decided meant success, and discover it's not enough. Not because they need more money, but because they never defined what the money was for beyond more. The hedge fund billionaire working 80-hour weeks despite having more money than his grandchildren could spend. The tech founder on his fifth startup despite already having fuck you money. The investor obsessively checking portfolios despite being set for life. They're trapped in a game they already won because winning was never actually the point. Playing was the point. And without the game, they don't know who they are. Here's what the truly strategic understand. Wealth is a tool, not a destination. The question isn't, how much is enough? The question is, what is this tool for? Some answers are shallow: consumption, status, ego validation. These are infinite games. There's always a bigger house, a faster car, a more expensive watch. Chase these and you'll never stop running. But some answers are meaningful. Freedom to create without commercial pressure. Capacity to support causes that matter. Power to protect people you care about. Ability to pursue mastery for its own sake. Marcus Licinius Crassus became the wealthiest Roman through ruthless business practices and political maneuvering. He died trying to conquer Parthia, captured and allegedly killed by having molten gold poured down his throat. A symbolic execution for a man who couldn't stop accumulating. The lesson? Wealth without purpose becomes its own prison. Andrew Carnegie understood this. After dominating the steel industry and accumulating massive wealth, he shifted to systematic philanthropy, not random charity, but strategic deployment of resources to create lasting impact. Libraries, universities, educational foundations, infrastructure that would compound value for generations. He wrote, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." Not because wealth is bad, but because wealth hoarded is wealth wasted. The strategic accumulator builds wealth to deploy it towards something meaningful. But here's the nuance they miss. You must secure your own position first. The oxygen mask analogy applies. You can't help others if you're suffocating. Carnegie's philanthropy was possible because he'd already built unshakable financial security. Machiavelli would approve of this sequencing. Secure your fortress, then decide what to do with your power. But decide. The man who accumulates without purpose is just a dragon sleeping on gold. Scary, perhaps, but ultimately irrelevant. Here's what changes when you answer the legacy question. Your relationship with money shifts from accumulation to deployment. You're not trying to maximize the number in your account. You're optimizing for impact per dollar. Different calculation, different behaviors. You become more strategic about time. Every hour spent making additional money you don't need is an hour not spent on the legacy project only you can build. At some point, more money stops being the highest leverage use of your remaining time. You start thinking in generations. What systems can you create that continue generating value after you're gone? What knowledge can you codify? What institutions can you build? What ideas can you encode into culture? The poor man lives day to day. The middle class lives year to year. The wealthy think in decades. The truly strategic think in centuries. Rockefeller's foundations are still operating a century after his death, still shaping medical research, education, and scientific advancement. His money compounded not just financially, but socially. Each dollar continues generating returns in human flourishing. That's not an accident. That's strategic thinking about what wealth is actually for. You've reached the crossroads that will define everything that follows. Every moment reading these words has been preparation for this decision, the decision about what you'll actually do with this knowledge. Down one path lies what they taught you. Follow your passion, do what you love, money will follow. Don't be materialistic, be content with enough. Success isn't measured in dollars. This path is comfortable, familiar, socially acceptable. You'll have company in your noble poverty. You'll feel morally superior to those chasing wealth. You'll convince yourself that your lack of resources is actually a sign of virtue. And you'll spend your entire life dependent on others' decisions about your survival, constrained by systems you have no power to change, watching opportunities pass because you lack the resources to seize them. Down the other path lies what Machiavelli knew. Resources are power. Power is freedom. Freedom is the prerequisite for everything else you claim to care about. The pursuit of wealth isn't shallow, it's strategic. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built. This path is harder. You'll face judgment from people who mistake your ambition for greed. You'll endure criticism from those who resent your refusal to stay in place. You'll experience loneliness as you separate from those not willing to do what wealth building requires. But you'll build something real, something tangible, something that compounds. You'll purchase your way out of systems designed to consume you. You'll acquire the resources to pursue what actually matters without needing permission. You'll become dangerous, not to others, but to the comfortable lies that keep people trapped. Machiavelli warned, men ought either to be indulged or utterly destroyed, for if you merely offend them, they take vengeance. But if you injure them greatly, they are unable to retaliate. Applied to wealth, either stay poor and compliant or become so financially powerful that the system can't pull you back down. The middle ground, comfortable but dependent, is the worst position. The employed man with a nice lifestyle is one decision away from catastrophe. The wealthy man has purchased immunity from others' whims. Marcus Aurelius wrote from a Stoic perspective, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." True, but he wrote this as Emperor of Rome, the most powerful position on earth. Easy to need very little when you have access to everything. The question is whether you'll test that philosophy from a position of poverty or from a position of having already secured resources. The Buddha renounced his kingdom after experiencing it. Notice the sequence. He had wealth, then chose simplicity. He didn't romanticize poverty from a position of never having options. Your choice today determines whether you'll spend the next decade building sovereignty or maintaining comfortable dependence. Will you continue trading your finite life energy for just enough money to survive until you trade more tomorrow? Or will you systematically, strategically, relentlessly pursue the resources that purchase freedom? Will you let guilt about wanting money keep you poor while pretending it's virtue? Or will you recognize that judgment for what it is, psychological chains designed to keep you compliant? Will you chase passion without resources and remain powerless? Or will you build resources first, then pursue passion from a position of strength? Machiavelli promised nothing easy. He offered something better than easy. He offered effective. The prince wasn't loved, but he controlled his destiny. The merchant wasn't celebrated, but he determined his own path. The wealth builder isn't popular, but he's free. This isn't the end of your journey. This is where you decide whether to begin it. The choice is yours. The time is now. The path is clear. Write in the comments, "I choose wealth." Let's see how many men are ready to stop apologizing for ambition and start building empires. How many are prepared to trade comfortable lies for uncomfortable truth? The game is being played whether you participate or not. The only question is whether you'll be a player or a piece. Machiavelli waits for no one. Neither does compound interest. Neither does time. Start now or stay trapped. Those are your options. Everything else is just noise.